Welcome back to What the Hype. I am so excited for this episode because we're actually going to be revisiting one of my favorite shows of all time. We're going to be talking about Gilmore Girls. And specifically, we're going to be talking about Gilmore Girls because Gilmore Girls actually turns 25 this year, which is definitely, that's an age that I feel in my bones. And I know my fellow co-hosts probably do too.
Wait, Pam, I'm sorry. Were you saying that we're all 25? Because I think that's what you were saying, right?
Of course, yes. Watching Gilmore Girls in the womb, as you do. So I'm here this week with Laura and Eric, both of whom are also fellow Gilmore Girls fans. How are you guys doing this week?
Hello. Feeling pretty well.
Great, yeah.
Had to grab my nearest backwards ball cap and coffee cup.
I was going to say, I hope y'all are watching this on YouTube because Eric came dressed for the occasion.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Special incentive. If you're listening to the audio only version of this podcast, you can head over to YouTube to see Eric's Luke Danes cosplay. It's very good.
Thank you. I still had a few pieces. Turns out I have a button-down shirt and a plain undershirt, and this was from a pop-up that came to Chicago, like a Luke's Diner kind of thing, probably 12 years ago at this point, but
I went to that pop-up, not in Chicago, but they had a pop-up in Berkeley, and I went to the Berkeley pop-up. It was so fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. So,
you know what, Eric? I gotta say, though, you're a lot more pleasant than Luke. He's extremely curmudgeonly, which is not a word I would use to describe you.
Well, thanks, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I should take that personal or something.
I don't know if you're putting on your best Luke Danes impression.
Yes.
I was about to be like, I've never seen Eric furrow their brow quite like that before.
Yeah. No, it's hilarious. Yes, I love all the characters of this show, which we'll get into. But it's kind of fun doing a Luke. It's kind of fun. I haven't worn a backwards baseball cap since I was 9, so.
Well, you're pulling it off.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thank you.
So before we get into the discussion this week, we wanted to give you all some quick facts about Gilmore Girls. First and foremost, you all might be wondering why we're doing this episode in May, because as diehard fans will know, the pilot actually first premiered on October 5th, 2000. But the WB is kicking off the series' 25th anniversary celebration specifically this month in May to coincide with Mother's Day. This is definitely one of those shows that people can justify binging throughout multiple times in the year, but you definitely see it in syndication more around Mother's Day, I think, than a lot of other holidays. And so we thought, well, if WB says it's time to celebrate Gilmore Girls, then we're going to do that here on What the Hype too. Why not?
Twist my arm.
I know. It doesn't take much to get us to talk about this show. And while the show was popular during its initial run, Gilmore Girls wasn't considered a massive success when it was airing. It did, however, amass a respectable average rating of about 5 million viewers weekly. So not too shabby, but definitely not as popular as it was after it went off air. And to give you all a little bit of context for that, Netflix viewership released a report in December 2023. And in that report, they revealed that the first 7 seasons of the series had amassed a total watch time of 488.7 million hours in the year on their platform. And that number jumps even higher to 505.8 million hours if you include 2016's A Year in the Life revival. And to put that into even better perspective for you all, that's actually higher than some of the more recent properties that have been really popular on the platform, like Stranger Things and Emily in Paris. Both of those clocked in a total of 347.6 million and 262.7 million watch hours, respectively, in 2023. So Gilmore Girls beat them out in spades, which is
pretty
insane.
Impressive.
Wow. Mm-hmm. To be honest, the one that really surprises me is Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Like, I would have never guessed that. This could have been, if Pam, if you had done this as trivia, like pub trivia, posing like which Netflix titles had their viewership surpassed by Gilmore Girls, Stranger Things would have been the first one that I was like, absolutely not. No
Yeah,
way.
well, it's really a testament to the rewatchability. You know,
Right.
teased at the beginning of this that this show also has like the reruns air on syndication fairly regularly, especially during times like Mother's Day. You see it a lot during Thanksgiving in the fall, and people that don't have traditional cable are obviously binging this usually in the fall when it's Gilmore Girls season officially, but also just like any time in the year when they just need something nice and familiar to return to. So I think that probably counts for the extra viewing for sure. In addition to like anybody that's tuning in for the first time, which what a crazy wild ride they're on.
Yeah.
So to get into our discussion now, I wanted to ask you both what your history with the show is. Were you watching initially when it aired, or did you come to it later in life? How did you discover it? What was it about it that drew you in?
I have to think back to the early 2000s. I was probably more often than not watching the WB. That was like my channel. It was channel 11 in Pennsylvania, and that was just you turn on the TV, it's on the WB. I watched some shows with my mom and sister, primarily Charmed, actually.
Yeah.
We would always catch Charmed. And occasionally, because the WB would also air like their primetime things later in the week too, I inevitably caught some Gilmore Girls. So I was familiar with the WB shows. I really liked quite a lot of them. Even would watch like Seventh Heaven back to back, whatever that was on. But it wasn't until the Netflix era, probably over 10 years ago now at this point, but my girlfriend at the time was a Gilmore Girls fan, and I knew I hadn't seen episodes chronologically or back to back or really with any regularity. So we binged, I think, at least the first 5 seasons of the show at the time. And so I was really surprised, I guess, how much I liked it, but there's so much to like. And it's a good show, I'm here to say.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, Eric, for anybody that doesn't know, Eric is non-binary. But there's a lot of, like non-binary people and like men that think that maybe this doesn't have anything for me in it because it's a show that is very much about the female experience. But it's really interesting how it only takes a couple of episodes for that perspective to shift and for the characters to resonate with people. Like, it's really popular with dads too, which is so weird because it's a show about mothers and daughters.
Well, yeah, you ever hear a dad say, "I have a wife, I have a daughter.
Yeah.
I can speak to this woman's issue. I
Some
have
of my
two
best
daughters."
friends are women.
Yeah, right. The thing about that I'll say, and there is a portrayal of fatherhood, right? Richard. There are some good examples of fatherhood. Luke as an uncle. To Jess, maybe some examples there. But no, I was blown away by the insight into the woman's experience, while at the same time kind of seeing it was so dialogue heavy. You had to like keep up, you had to catch up. It's like a Sorkin show, but woman-led instead. And
Yes.
I actually really... I think that more than anything is what drew me in or kept me there, is feeling like I had to keep up and being excited to keep up with what the main character was doing, woman or man or whatever. It just really was a good story that had a lot of good emotions.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to why people of all ages can find this show and enjoy it. So I'm someone who actually did not watch any Gilmore Girls until I was in my 20s. So I also came across it during the Netflix era. And it was really because I knew that Gilmore Girls was kind of like a cultural touchstone for a lot of my peers. And I always had the sense that I had kind of missed out on a TV show phenomena, on like water cooler talk about this TV show that a lot of my girlfriends and their moms really like to watch together. I just wasn't super into this type of show when I was that age. I was like very into like, being as alternative as possible, which like tell me, a more teenage story than that. So I didn't really give this a chance until I was much older. And a friend of mine had actually told me, because I was a pretty big fan of the show Weeds for the first few seasons. And like, while the subject matter is very, very different between Weeds and Gilmore Girls, my friend was like, if you enjoy the dialogue in the first few seasons of Weeds, you'll enjoy the dialogue in Gilmore Girls, because it's very fast, very quippy, very clever. And that is something that it also shares with The West Wing, to your point, Eric. So it was pretty easy to get drawn in. I mean, even the opening scenes, the opening beats of the show catch you within the first like 30 seconds, I think.
Definitely. I think the impression that somebody would have that hasn't seen the show is that it's like twee somehow, or like, you know, kind of quaint and kind of, oh, the Gilmore Girls, they're what are the Gilmore Girls up to this time? But the themes explored, and like the relationship, and like there is serious drama in this show, and you care deeply about it. Like it's the welcoming town of Stars Hollow is like, so it's a comfortable blanket, but don't like be mistaken that like real stuff happens to what seems like real, fully fleshed out characters in these stories.
Yeah, and I think something that I really love about the show is that I've binged it quite a few times in my life, and I feel like I get something different out of it every time, because there are so many characters, and depending on like what your mindset is going into watching the show, you might resonate with like one person's point of view over another. Like Eric, I was somebody that came into the show when it was airing on the WB. So the show was around for enough time for the network, by the way, to go from the WB to the CW, which obviously that's what we know of it today. But yeah, like I remember watching this fairly religiously when it was airing in real time. This was like before we had streaming, so it wasn't until they started putting the series out on DVD box set that I was actually able to like watch it in full, because if you missed an episode, like that was it, you couldn't really find it again,
man.
So that was, yeah, those
Remember
were the
DVDs
days
by mail. It's like that show. Yeah.
But I think
remember when we got DVR and it was like life changing.
Yeah.
Changer.
And then somebody in your family would inevitably like tape over the one show you wanted to watch. It was rough times.
What were we doing, you guys? What were as a society? What were we doing?
I don't know. Netflix saw an opportunity and they clearly swooped in.
Right.
But yeah, I think that like, you know, Laura, you were making the point about how like this show deeply resonated with like an entire generation. And obviously it's still resonating with new generations that stumble upon it on Netflix as well. But like, I think that like, I didn't realize like what a like profound impact watching this show so young had on me until they started, you know, teasing the idea of the show coming back for this A Year in the Life series, which we'll get to later. And I started reporting on it as part of work. And I was like, wow, I have a lot to say, but also I never realized like how much of an impact the show has had on my life and on shaping like certain parts of my life. It definitely has like impacted me as a writer, the writing style, like that quippy style that you were talking about, Eric. And just like also like the desire from a young age to like sound, I think, as sophisticated as some of like the dialogue sounds like, because like there's nothing a teenager hates more than somebody saying like it's unrealistic for teenagers to talk like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I would always think like, well, my friends are actually really smart and like we talk like that, so you guys are wrong, disrespectfully, you know? So
yeah.
But yeah, like it's crazy like how sometimes like you will watch a show when you're young and you don't realize the impact that it's having on you until much later. So
That's real. That's very real.